The laughter was quiet at first, a few snickers behind the locker doors, whispers bouncing off the concrete walls of the precinct. But he heard them. Officer Raymond Cole always heard them. He was the man who had worn the badge for over 3 decades, the one they now called Grandpa Cop, when they thought he was out of earshot. His hair had turned silver, his gait a little slower, but his eyes, those sharp, steel-gray eyes, still carried the same intensity they did the day he first pinned the badge to his chest. He used to command respect without saying a word. But now, in a department filled with younger officers who measured skill by how fast they could draw a gun or type a report, he had become invisible, or worse, a joke. They called him old school, outdated, past his prime. But what they did not know was that Raymond Cole had seen more chaos, more fear, and more death than any of them could stomach. He had buried friends, lost partners, and carried the ghosts of mistakes that could never be undone. Still, every morning, before dawn broke, he polished his boots, adjusted his badge, and reminded himself, "You are not here to be liked. You are here to serve." It started that Monday morning briefing, the one where Lieutenant Briggs announced a string of armed robberies across the west side. The same pattern, the same ruthless precision. 5 gas stations, 2 grocery stores. No casualties yet, but the tension in the city was growing thick. When the lieutenant asked for volunteers for night surveillance, the room fell quiet. Then a smirk spread across the face of Officer Tyler. Young, muscular, the kind who thought adrenaline made him immortal. "Hey, why not send Cole?" he said with a grin. Those old eyes could use a little excitement before bedtime. The room erupted with laughter. Even Briggs cracked a half-smile before clearing his throat. Raymond just stood there, expression steady, coffee cup trembling slightly in his hand. He did not respond. He had learned long ago that silence could say more than anger ever could. But inside, something stirred. That familiar burn in the chest, the one that came when pride clashed with patience. That night, as he sat alone in his patrol car, the city lights reflecting off the windshield, Raymond found himself tracing the edges of his badge with his thumb. 32 years of service. Every scratch on that metal told a story. Every story carried a price. He thought of his late wife, Margaret, how she used to tell him, "You wear that badge like it's part of your soul." And maybe she was right. Maybe it was. The dispatch crackled through the radio. Unit 14, possible 211 in progress. Gas station at Maple and 3rd. 2 armed suspects. Approach with caution. He straightened up, heartbeat steady. The night had been quiet until now. And suddenly, it was not. "Copy that," he said into the mic, Unit 14 en route. The old engine roared to life, tires biting the asphalt. Outside, the wind carried the faint hum of sirens in the distance. But Raymond knew he was the closest unit. He always was. By the time he arrived, the gas station lights flickered, one of the front windows shattered, a terrified cashier crouched behind the counter. Through the glass door, he could see 2 masked men shouting, waving guns, demanding the cash register to open faster. He did not rush in. He observed, calculated. Every move mattered when lives hung in seconds. One suspect paced near the door, agitated, twitchy. The other, leaner, stuffed bills into a black duffel bag. Raymond slipped quietly to the side of the building, unholstering his weapon. Inside, the pacing man turned, his gun now aimed at the cashier. Raymond's pulse spiked. He had no backup yet. The radio crackled faintly, too risky to respond. He exhaled once, slow and calm. He had done this before. Too many times to count. He moved. The door swung open in an instant, glass shattering further as he stepped in, voice booming with authority that had not aged a day. "Police, drop your weapon." The younger suspect froze, startled by the sudden command. The second turned sharply, gun lifting. Raymond fired once. The bullet struck clean, knocking the weapon from the man's grip. Before the first could react, Raymond closed the distance, sweeping his legs and pinning him to the ground with the precision of a man who had drilled that move 1,000 times. Seconds later, sirens flooded the street. When the younger officers arrived, they found Raymond standing over both suspects, one disarmed, the other handcuffed, his old uniform streaked with dust and adrenaline. No words were exchanged. No one laughed this time. But Tyler's eyes said everything. Disbelief, respect, maybe even shame. Raymond holstered his gun, gave a small nod, and walked past them toward his patrol car. As he sat down, the city lights blurred through the windshield. He took a long breath and whispered to himself, "Too old, huh?" And for the first time in years, a faint smile curved his lips. But this was only the beginning. The next morning, Raymond woke to a flood of messages. His phone buzzed endlessly on the nightstand. News outlets had already picked up the story. Veteran officer foils armed robbery alone. Some called him a hero. Others called him reckless. By noon, the precinct felt like a circus. Reporters crowded outside, flashing cameras as he walked in. The same officers who mocked him a day earlier now clapped him on the shoulder, offering forced smiles and quick congratulations. "Nice work last night, old man," Tyler said, trying to sound casual. Raymond gave a polite nod. He had no interest in attention. He had done his job. Nothing more, nothing less. But deep down, he knew what was coming. Every time a cop made headlines, there was always a price to pay. Later that week, an internal meeting was called. Lieutenant Briggs looked tense, pacing the front of the room. "Cole," he began, "great work out there. But you broke protocol. You engaged suspects without backup." Raymond didn't flinch. Backup was 7 minutes out. The cashier didn't have that long. Briggs sighed. "I know, but we have to play by the rules. We can't afford heat from the department." Rules. Always rules. Raymond had heard that word his entire career, usually from people who had never been in a real fight. Still, he nodded respectfully. He understood politics. But the room was divided. Some looked at him with admiration, others with quiet resentment. Tyler leaned toward another officer and muttered just loud enough for Raymond to hear. He got lucky. Old reflexes don't last forever. Raymond didn't turn around. He didn't need to. The smirk in Tyler's voice said it all. But what none of them realized was that the gang he had stopped that night wasn't done. Not by a long shot. 3 nights later, Raymond was finishing paperwork in the dimly lit precinct when the emergency call came in. Unit 9 requesting backup. Multiple armed suspects. 10 to 33. Corner of Park and Edison. He froze. That was Tyler's patrol zone. Without hesitation, Raymond grabbed his vest and sprinted out. The rain was pouring by then, turning the city into a blur of red and blue reflections. The wipers struggled against the storm as he sped through empty intersections, sirens howling. When he reached the scene, his heart dropped. Tyler's car was overturned, windshield shattered, smoke rising from the hood. Bullets had torn through the side panels. He scanned the area, no movement except flickering streetlights and the distant hum of traffic. Then a sound, a low groan. Tyler lay on the pavement, bleeding from his shoulder. "They're still here," he whispered. "Same guys, they knew our route." Raymond ducked behind the wrecked cruiser just as a burst of gunfire ripped through the air. Automatic rifles. Precise. Controlled. This wasn't random. It was a message. A retaliation. He radioed in backup, voice steady despite the chaos. "Officer down. Multiple suspects armed with assault rifles. Engaging until units arrive." He took a deep breath and counted the echoes. 3 shooters. 1 on the roof. 2 across the street. He adjusted his aim. And in that moment, the years melted away. Raymond moved with instinct born of survival, not youth. He fired 2 controlled shots. Glass shattered above the rooftop silhouette. A grunt, then silence. The other 2 fired back wildly, their muzzle flashes cutting through the storm. He rolled behind a dumpster, mud soaking his uniform. The rain masked his movement. He waited, counted their reload rhythm, then struck again, swift and precise. 1 suspect down. The second hesitated, panic overtaking bravado. But before Raymond could move, another car screeched around the corner. Tinted windows, engine roaring. It wasn't backup. It was reinforcements for them. He grabbed Tyler by the arm, dragging him behind cover as rounds tore through the concrete. His radio crackled uselessly, too much interference. "No help. Not yet." He whispered under his breath. "Stay with me, kid. You're not dying on my watch." Tyler groaned, clutching his wound. They knew our schedule. Someone tipped them off." Raymond's jaw tightened. Inside the precinct, someone had been feeding information. A mole. The gang was organized, not desperate. And they had friends in high places. Then, headlights. Backup finally arrived. But as the patrol cars screeched to a stop, the attackers were already gone, leaving shell casings and silence behind. As medics loaded Tyler into the ambulance, Raymond stood in the rain, fists clenched. This wasn't over. Not until he found out who betrayed them. And as thunder rolled across the city, he made a silent vow. You mocked me for being old. You'll soon learn that experience never dies. The precinct had never felt colder. After the ambush, tension ran thick through the halls. Officers whispered in corners, avoiding eye contact. The laughter that once followed Raymond everywhere was gone, replaced by unease. Tyler was in the hospital, recovering. He would live, but barely. Raymond had visited him once, just once, because he hated hospitals. The sterile smell, the constant beeping of machines, the memories of his wife's final days. When Tyler opened his eyes, the first thing he said was, "You saved my life." Raymond had smiled faintly. You'd have done the same. But they both knew that wasn't true. Not yet, anyway. Now, back in the station, Raymond couldn't shake what Tyler had told him. They knew our route. It was too specific, too precise. Someone inside had tipped them off. Raymond started small. He stayed late, reviewed call logs, cross-checked patrol schedules, traced every communication that went out the night of the ambush. Most of it was routine, shift reports, route assignments, incident notes. But one thing stood out. A message from a precinct terminal sent just 15 minutes before Tyler's call for backup. The sender? Sergeant Donovan. Raymond frowned. Donovan was one of the newer sergeants. Charming, talkative, and suspiciously friendly with everyone. He was the kind of man who made quick friends and avoided tough cases. It didn't sit right. So, Raymond started watching him. Not openly, quietly. The way only an old cop knew how. He listened to conversations, observed who Donovan met during breaks, who he texted after hours. And soon enough, he noticed a pattern. Donovan's phone calls were frequent, always from the parking lot, always brief. He never used the precinct line. Raymond's instincts screamed one thing, dirty. He couldn't accuse Donovan outright. The department would need proof. But Raymond knew that by the time he got it, more officers could die. So he did what he always did best. He improvised. One evening, just after shift change, he caught Donovan near the back exit. Heading out early? Raymond asked casually. Donovan smirked. Yeah, family dinner. You should try that sometime, old man. Raymond gave a slow nod. Maybe I will. After 30 years of this job, you learn to appreciate peace and quiet. Donovan chuckled and walked off. But Raymond wasn't done. He followed, carefully, keeping distance through the misty streets until Donovan stopped at a closed repair shop on the edge of town. A black SUV was parked behind it. Two men waited outside, faces hidden under hoodies. Raymond's gut twisted. It was them, the same men from the gas station robbery. He crouched behind a fence, phone recording in hand. Donovan handed something small to one of the men, a flash drive. The taller man handed him a thick envelope in return. And then, Raymond's radio chirped faintly. Just once. Loud enough to draw attention. One of the men turned sharply. Who's there? Raymond ducked, heart pounding. The men moved fast, spreading out, scanning the alley. Donovan cursed under his breath. You idiots, keep it down. But it was too late. Raymond was already gone, slipping into the shadows, his boots splashing through puddles. He had seen enough. Now he just needed to make it count. The next day, Raymond walked into the precinct like nothing had happened. Donovan gave him a smug nod, as if daring him to speak. Raymond didn't. Not yet. Instead, he went straight to Lieutenant Briggs' office, locked the door, and dropped his phone on the desk. Play that, he said. The video spoke for itself. The exchange, the faces, the cash. Everything. Briggs' expression changed from confusion to fury. That son of a... I need to handle this, Raymond interrupted. Quietly. If we spook them, they'll vanish before internal affairs even blinks. Briggs hesitated, then nodded. You get one night. After that, it's out of your hands. That was all Raymond needed. By dusk, he was back in his car, waiting outside that same repair shop. This time, he wasn't alone, but the backup was off-grid, silent, watching from afar. Rain began to fall again, soft at first, then harder. He smiled faintly. Seems the city likes drama, he muttered. Hours passed before the SUV returned. 4 men stepped out, Donovan among them. They entered the shop. Raymond waited until the last light went off inside, then whispered into his mic. Move in. Doors burst open. Shadows turned to chaos. The suspects reached for guns, but this time, the old man was ready. Raymond's shot rang through the night, clean, controlled, perfect. Two men dropped. Another tried to flee, only to be tackled by the silent officers waiting outside. Donovan froze, cornered. His weapon clattered to the floor. "Don't," Raymond said, stepping closer, voice low but steady. "Not another mistake." Donovan's face twisted with rage. "You should have retired when you had the chance." Raymond's eyes hardened. "And missed this." He cuffed him himself, pressing the metal tight. The moment felt heavier than any arrest in his life, not because of danger, but betrayal. By dawn, it was over. The gang dismantled. The mole exposed. But for Raymond, it wasn't triumph. It was closure. He sat on the curb, watching the sunrise break through the clouds. Briggs approached quietly. "You did good, Cole. Real good." Raymond nodded slowly. "Just doing my job." But deep inside, he knew this might be the last time he'd ever wear the badge. Because after all the noise, the chaos, and the years, he had finally proven what everyone had forgotten. Age doesn't weaken you. It refines you. He stood up, one last time, with the pride of a man who had given his life to something greater than himself. And as he walked away from the flashing lights, the city whispered in silence. Not laughter this time, but respect.